Welcome to today's class. Our topic for today is farm machinery and implements, part A. Now, with the coming of the Industrial Revolution and the development of more complicated machines. Now, the Industrial Revolution is a period when the pattern of production changed from the manual way of doing things to the use of machines. So that's basically what the Industrial Revolution is about. So with the coming of the Industrial Revolution, where machines were depended upon, and the development of more complicated machines, farming methods took a great leap forward. For instance, instead of harvesting grains by hand using sharp blades, wheeled machines were now used to do the work. So in this lesson, we'll be discussing about farm machinery and implement, with our focus being on the tractor, the bulldozer, the shellers, the dryers, the incubator, and milking machine. So by the end of this lesson, you should be able to define farm machinery. You should also be able to highlight the classification of field machines. And finally, you should be able to describe farm machines, stating the types, functions or uses, and maintenance of various farm machines. All right, let's start with the reading of farm machinery. Now, farm machinery includes the different types of machines and implements used in the farm. It refers to the range of mechanical devices which supply power in carrying out farm operations for improved agricultural production. So that's what farm machinery is about. It's about using machines to apply power to farm operations or to carry out farm operations in order to improve agricultural production. Now we have some common types of farm machineries, and we have what we call the tractors, the bulldozers, as I mentioned earlier while introducing the class, the tree puller, the sheller, the dryer, the incubator, the milking machine. Then we also have what is called tractor-coupled or mounted implements. Now you need to also take note of the fact that tractor-coupled implements or mounted implements are also called tillage or intermediate machines. Now these are implements that are coupled or attached to tractors in order for them to be operated or to make use of. They cannot just function on their own. They need to be attached or coupled to a tractor in order to make good use of them. You should also take note that tractor-coupled implements are attached to the tractor at a place called the 3-point linkage. Now, you cannot just attach these implements to the tractor without making good use of the 3-point linkage. Now, from the picture there, you can see how a 3-point linkage looks. You can see how the parts of it. The top is called the top link. You can see the top link, the lower lift arm. You can see the lower lift arm on both sides, left and right. You can see the stabilizer chain, the drop arm, the leveling box, and the lower span point. So this picture helps us to understand how a 3-point linkage looks. It's attached to the tractor. It can be detached and it can be attached to the tractor. But that is where tractor-coupled implements like the plow, the harrow, the ridges are attached to. And also some other implements that are drawn to can be attached to the tractor using this particular place called the 3-point linkage. Now let's look at the classification of field machines. How are field machines classified? So we have the trailed implements. What are trailed implements? These are implements that are pulled on their own support wheel. If you look at the picture, you can see that it's also a coupled implement, but you can see there's a support wheel that is at the middle of that implement there. There's a support wheel. If you can look at this, you can see the support wheel where the cursor is. You can see that's the support wheel. So this is a trailed implement. It falls under trailed implements. Why? Because they are pulled on their own support wheel and are guided from a single hitch point of the tractor. So it's attached to the tractor here, but it's also supported by this wheel that is attached to this implement. It's a harrow. Okay. Now, we also have another classification called semi-mounted implements. Now, these are mounted to the tractor at the 3-point linkage system. So, it's attached to the tractor at the 3-point linkage system, but they also have a support wheel at the rear, which also helps to support the implement. You can see the support wheel of this semi-mounted implement at the rear. So this picture helps us to have a clearer view of how the support rear wheel looks like in a semi-mounted implement. Now we also have what is called the mounted implement. Now these are totally carried by the tractor without any support wheel. Now all operations of the implement is under the control of the tractor's hydraulic system. Now this tractor's hydraulic system helps the implement to be lifted up from the ground or brought down to the ground. For example, if the tractor with the implement attached to it is not on the field, probably it's being taken out of the field to the garage where it's parked, it has to be lifted up. But when it's in activity on the farm trying to carry out tillage practices, it needs to be brought down to the soil, and that's where the hydraulic system helps to achieve that. So it's attached to the 3-point linkage, which I've shown you earlier, how the 3-point linkage looks and the various components of the 3-point linkage. Okay, so we're going to look at different farm machineries and implements, and we'll start with the tractor. Let's look at what the tractor is. The tractor is a multi-purpose motor vehicle which is used for lifting and pulling farm implements. And it is the center of most machines and implements owned by a farmer. Now, it provides a pull for the rear of the tractor for implements such as the plow and the ridger. So the plow and the ridgers are attached to the rear of a tractor. So the tractor helps to provide a pull for such implements that are attached to the rear at the 3-point linkage. Now the tractor also provides a push. If you have in mind, the bulldozer is an equipment that you can understand this aspect of the tractor having a push, because the bulldozer has a blade in front of it, and so in this case you can say that the tractor or the motor vehicle pushes the blade forward, so it provides a push at the front. Then you can also say it provides, the tractor also provides power to belt pulleys for machines such as threshers and pumps. Now it has a power takeoff shaft, and what's the purpose of the power takeoff shaft? Is to draw farm implements like the plows, the harrows, and the harvesters. Then it also has a hydraulic power system which is attached to the 3-point linkage, and this helps to lift up implements which are under the control of the operator. And the main source of power for the tractor is the internal combustion engine, which is derived from burning of fuel, and the power generated by the tractor is rated in horsepower ATP. Let's look at the different types of tractors. Now, these tractors can be classified based on the wheel that it possesses, the engine, and the power output or the capacity. So we have, based on the wheel, we have 3 types. So let's start with the first type, and this wheel type is also known as the general purpose or the row crop tractor. Under the wheel type, I said, we have 3 types. We'll start with the first, which is the pneumatic tire type. Now this tractor has a rubber type wheel, or has rubber type wheels at the front and at the rear, and is used in upland areas. Now take a look at the picture, you can see what I'm talking about. It has rubber tire wheels both at the front, you can see them, and at the rear. The second type of wheel type of tractor we have is called the crawler type. Now this has chains or crawler wheels that are running from the full length of the tractor on both sides. So when I'm giving this description, you take a look at the picture, it helps you to understand better. Now this is common in bulldozers and is usually used for working on wetlands, those areas that are swampy. for that needs a lot of traction. That means it needs to be grip. The tractor needs to have good grip while carrying out its activities, while carrying out its tillage operations. So this is how the crawler type looks like. It's a wheel type tractor. Then we have the half track type, which is also a wheel type tractor. Now this has to do with a combination of both the wheel and the crawler type. So from the picture you can see that the front part has wheels and the rear part has chains or crawlers. So the crawlers are also called chains. Now this classification of tractors based on, we've talked about the wheel type, so let's talk about the engine type. Based on their engine, we have two types. We have the diesel or the injection type, and we have the petrol engine or the carburetor type. Now the diesel or the injection type has no spark plugs and it uses diesel oil, and this is the most common type. Then we have the petrol engine or carburetor type, which uses spark plugs and petrol or gasoline, which is burnt in the carburetor. So it's found in tractors that are employed in small horticultural operations. Then the next classification or type of tractor we have is the engine power. That's classification based on the engine power output or capacity. Now, based on power capacity, tractors can be classified or described as large, medium, or small. Now, let's take a look at the functions of parts of a tractor. So the functions of the parts of a tractor we have, I mentioned earlier, the power takeoff shaft. Now, what's the purpose of the power takeoff shaft? This helps to transmit power to some attached implements. So these implements cannot function without the power takeoff shaft. Then we have what is called the drawbar, and what's the function of the drawbar is used to hook farm implements that needs to be drawn. Farm implements that need to be drawn. Some implements need to be that's lifted and brought down, while some need to just be drawn, so they are attached to the drawbar. The drawbar is still connected to the 3-point linkage, but it's not fully attached. It's just a part of it. Now we have the 3-point linkage, which is like a triangle, as I showed you earlier on, or like the shape of an A. Now it's used for mounting farm implements too, like the plow. Then we also have the hydraulic system. We're looking at the functions of the parts of a tractor. Now, what's the purpose of the hydraulic system? It's used for lifting and lowering mounted implements. Those implements that are attached to the 3-point linkage that need to be lifted or lowered, like the plows or the harrows. As I said, when the tractor is on the field, on the farm, these implements need to be lowered to carry out tillage practices. But once it's been returned to the garage, you don't need to lower it. It needs to be lifted up. So the hydraulic system helps to achieve that. Then we have the check chains. What's the purpose of the check chains? It helps to put in check these implements that have been mounted or attached to the tractor to prevent the sideways swing of such implements while in motion. Then we have the wheels. The wheels help to provide means of traction, which has to do with the movement of our tractors. Now, as I said earlier on, we have tractors that consist of the internal combustion engine, which uses the diesel or petrol. We have those that have the 4 wheels with rubber tires, and some are half-tracked where they have wheels and chains, wheels in front and chains at the back. And some popular examples of such tractors are the David Brown, Mason Ferguson, Ford, or Fiat. These are brand names that make tractors. Let's look at the function or the uses of the tractor. Now, the tractor is used to for transportation of farm inputs and farm produce. So when you're carrying out your farming activities and you need to take some of these inputs to the farm, you can make use of your tractor to carry out the inputs like fertilizers, seedlings, seeds, chemicals to your farm. And during harvest, when the crops produce fruits or foods, you are able to carry them out. You need to carry them out of the farm. You can make use of your tractor for transporting such farm produce. Then it can also be used for lifting or coupling implements through the hydraulic system, as we've mentioned earlier. and it can be used for pulling of farm implements like the plow, and it can also provide stationary power for certain equipments like the shellers and grinders. It can also be used for operating the milking machines. It can be used for mowing lawns with mowers attached to it. It can also contribute to the improved profitability by helping to reduce the labor cost, because you do not need too much labor when you make use of machines as against when you do things manually. And this can help to improve the quality and quantity of our produce. Let's take a look at the maintenance practices of tractors. Now we have what is called the daily maintenance and we have the periodic maintenance. Let's take a look at the daily maintenance practices of the tractors. So what do you do daily in order to maintain your tractors? First, you have to keep it clean at the start of the day or your activities, and at the end of your operations. You need to keep your tractor clean. You also need to check the water level daily and to top it when necessary. The oil level also needs to be checked daily and to top it when necessary. The tires too, the tire pressure needs to be checked daily before operation. You should also inspect the tractor daily before you start. Just take a good look at the tractors, look around to see if everything is in order before you start making use of it. The electrolyte of the battery too also needs to be checked daily and topped when necessary. Then the manufacturer also has a manual. There are certain instructions that have been given by the manufacturer in order to effectively operate the tractor. So you need to adhere strictly to such instructions. And you should also not overload the tractor. Now let's look at the periodic maintenance of practices of tractors. Not what you do daily, but what you do at regular intervals. Now, we have to service the tractor at regular intervals. That has to do with changing of the oils, checking of the plugs. Now, this has to be done at regular intervals. Then, if the tires are worn out, you need to replace them. And the pressure should also be gauged regularly. Then ensure that nuts and screws are checked and tightened at regular intervals. Now, when we have broken parts or worn out parts, they have to be replaced also. A competent and experienced tractor operator needs to be employed. Someone who knows how to handle or to drive or operate the tractor needs to be employed. You also need to do a routine or regular changing of the engine oil, which is part of servicing. The oil filter should be cleared when necessary. The oil filter should be changed, that's during service. Then the air filter should be cleared when necessary, and you should also grease the movable parts regularly. The carburetor also needs to be cleaned regularly. The next farm machinery we'll be looking at is called the bulldozer. So we've treated the tractor, we've looked at the tractor, now we'll be looking at the bulldozer. You can see the bulldozer is a chain tractor, or chain machinery. The wheel type has to do with the chains. This picture also helps us to understand that that aspect that I talked about. So the bulldozer is a powerful machine with a broad steel blade at the front. And they say it has a track-type metal chains which is used for movement. It consists of the internal combustion engine, which uses diesel or petrol. What's the function of the bulldozer? What do you use the bulldozer for? It can be used for bush clearing. You can also use it to fell trees on stumps. Now, we fell trees, we not fall trees. That's the proper terminology to use. For the felling of trees and the removal of stumps, the bulldozer can be used to achieve that. You can also use it to level the ground when the topography is undulating, not in order. You can use it to level the ground. You can also use it to construct roads on the farms and in rural areas. In order to access our farms, the farms need to be accessible, and so roads need to be constructed to the farms, and this can be achieved using the bulldozer. Then you also need to, it can be used for removing or moving and collecting of earth. During construction purposes, you need some soil or earth. You can make use of the bulldozer to move earth or to collect earth or soil. Let's look at the maintenance of the bulldozer. How do we maintain our bulldozer to keep it working effectively and efficiently? At the start and at the end of the operation, you should ensure that it is kept clean. You should also check the water levels, check the oil levels daily, check the tire pressures before operating the bulldozer. You should also inspect it every day before you start making use of it. You check the electrolyte of the battery and top when necessary. You should also adhere to the manufacturer's instructions strictly. Also, do not overload the bulldozer or overuse it. That's operate at appropriate speed for farm operations. Another farm machinery we'll be looking at is called a tree puller. Now, what is a tree puller? It's just a machine that is like the tractor or the bulldozer. It has the ability to move on the soil surface with minimal disturbance to the topsoil. And it has a unique feature of just pulling trees. So it's meant for pulling trees. And it does this with minimal disturbance to the soil structure. What are the advantages of using a tree puller? Now, it doesn't compress the topsoil. That means it protects or doesn't cause damage to the soil structure. It does not remove the topsoil, which is fertile, very important, because in trying to get rid of the trees, if you're using the bulldozer, you may end up removing part of the topsoil, but the tree puller doesn't remove the fertile topsoil. And so the removal of the topsoil is avoided, and this helps to retain the mulching effect of the vegetative cover. The mulching effect has to do with vegetative cover, that's as plants that are grown, cover crops that help to conserve moisture in the soil. So the tree puller helps to retain the mulching effects of such, because the vegetation is not affected when the topsoil is not also affected. Now, it leads to less prone to erosive forces. Now, because the topsoil is not affected either by compaction or removal, and the vegetation is still left intact, this helps to prevent erosive forces or erosion from taking place. And as a result of this, they said the organic matter content, which has to do with the humus found, which is necessary for plant growth, is also retained when you make use of the tree puller. So it also leads to non-destruction of the soil structure. So the soil structure is kept intact when you make use of a tree puller. So these are some of the advantages, and it normally uproots the trees with minimal disturbance to the soil. So let's take a look at the picture. You can see how a tree puller looks. You can see how it has carefully removed that tree, uprooted that tree without disturbing the soil structure. The next farm machinery we'll be looking at is called the sheller. Of course, the sheller is used for shelling crops like maize, the maize cob, to remove the seeds. So it's a processing machine and is used to separate dry grains from the cobs of maize. It can be operated electrically, manually, or mechanically. And we have different types that are made to suit the type of crop in question. Now, what's the function of the sheller? It's used to separate seeds from the husk or the cob of maize. The next farm machinery we'll be looking at is called the dryer. Now, from the name dryers, you know that the farm produce have moisture, water in them. So the dryers and this moisture contents have to be reduced in order to ensure that they are properly stored and preserved for future use. So the dryers can help us to reduce the moisture content. So there are farm machines which are used to reduce the moisture content of commodities such as grains and cocoa. Now, what's the function? They are used for drying plant materials as stated earlier, such as cocoa, beans, groundnut, and maize, and other farm crop produce. They can also be used for drying animal products such as meats. Now, these dryers generate heat and also distribute this heat, which helps to dry or reduce the moisture content of our stored produce. The next machinery we'll be looking at is the incubator. So from the picture there, you can see how an incubator looks like, where eggs are placed inside, fertile eggs are placed inside in order to hatch, to produce chicks. Now, what's the function of the incubator. They said they are made in various sizes and designs, and they use different types of fuels. We have the oil, lamp, or electricity, and the purpose of the fuel is to supply heat, which is required by the incubator to hatch the eggs. The types of incubators that exist are the natural draught or table type, and we also have the forced draught or cabinet type. What are the conditions for an incubator to function? So there are certain things that must be put in place before an incubator can function properly. Now, before you place the fertilized eggs in the incubator, you need to run the incubator for about 12 to 24 hours. You don't just switch on the incubator and now put in fertilized eggs. You need to keep it on or running for about 12 to 24 hours before you now put in the fertilized eggs. The temperature range is also important for an incubator to function effectively, and it functions effectively within a temperature of 37 degrees to 39 degrees Celsius. Relative humidity is another aspect that you need to consider or look at in order for an incubator to function properly. Now, the relative humidity should be within the range of 50% to 70%, or you can just have it at an optimal level of 60%. There should also be adequate ventilation in order for an incubator to function properly. So what is the function of the incubator? I stated that earlier on while I was talking about the machine. The function of the incubator is to hatch fertilized eggs artificially. Now, we know that chickens or hens do provide some form of warmth to the eggs that they've laid in order to ensure that the embryo develops properly into a chick. Now, these scientists have been able to take this same condition and convert it into a machine. If you have ever observed a hen incubating its eggs, you know from time to time it uses its beak to rotate the eggs. The incubator also does that. So whatever attitude the chick displays while incubating the egg, the scientists have been able to transfer that to the incubators. Okay, let's look at the components of the incubator. An incubator is made up of a setter and a hatcher. Now, fertilized eggs are kept in the setter for 18 days. And after that, the eggs or the fertilized eggs are now moved to the hatcher. So for an egg to hatch, it takes 21 days for a chick to be produced. So 18 days first in the setter, then the remaining 3 days in the hatcher. So let's take a look at the other components of an incubator. We have the heater. This helps to supply heat to the incubator because warmth has to be provided in order to ensure that the embryo develops into a chick. So the heater helps to provide the heat needed by the incubator. Then the thermostat helps to regulate the temperature of the incubator, which is very important too, so that the heat is not too much and not too low, so that you have to be able to check that using the thermostat. Then we also have the hygrometer. This helps to regulate the humidity of the incubator. You're able to monitor the humidity so that the environment is not too dry or too moist. Then we also have, or part of the component of the incubator is the thermometer. This helps to detect the degree of hotness or coldness of the machine. We have the egg racks or trays as another component or part of the components of the incubator, and this is for holding the eggs. The vent helps to ensure circulation of air or proper ventilation, while the egg turning device helps to or is used for regular turning of the eggs. Remember when I talked about the chick, the mother hen or the hen, I said the incubator is just a prototype of what the hen does while incubating her eggs. So she uses her beaks intermittently to turn the eggs. So the egg turning device is also part of the incubator, which does exactly what the chick does, the hen does while incubating her eggs. We also have the insulator. The insulator helps to prevent heat loss. There are certain problems that are associated with the functioning of the components of the incubator. So let's take a look at some of those problems. Now, if it's an electric incubator, there could be power failure. And if it is kerosene, heated incubator, the kerosene may run out. So these are some of the problems that has to do with the power source. Then the thermometer, the problem that could be associated with the thermometer is that there could be high or low voltage. And for the fan, there could be irregular supply, that's power supply. There could also be overheating as a result of overusage of the fan. The fan also has some nuts which could loosen. The fan also has some movable parts which need to be lubricated. So if there could be improper lubrication of such movable parts which could affect its functioning. Then the thermometer, the problem associated with the thermometer, or possible problem associated with the thermometer, is that the bulb could crack or break, or the thermometer may end up losing its sensitivity. Ventilation, the problem associated with ventilation, or possible problem associated with the ventilation, is that it could get blocked. Then for the water basins, there could be leakages or the contents could dry up. And for the insulator, it could malfunction. And for the egg turning device, the movable parts of it may end up getting rusty or wear out, or the nuts may end up loosening up. The next fan machinery we'll be looking at is called the milking machine. Now, what's the milking machine? It's made up of an electric motor, a vacuum pump, a source of power, trap pail, milk tank, and teat cups. How does the milking machine work? The milk is removed from the teat cup when the vacuum is applied to the outside of the teat cup. So the vacuum is applied to the outside of the teat cup liner. Now, when the teat cup liner collapses, the teat is now massaged. The teat is a part of the udder, or the mammary gland of cows. So when the teat cup liner collapses, the teat is massaged. And this action of massaging prevents congestion in the flow of milk from the udder into the teat cup. What are the benefits of using the milking machine? Now, it's more efficient than doing it manually. You can also milk manually using your hands, creating a massage, and now extracting the milk from the udder or mammary gland of the cow. But the milking machine is more efficient, you understand? And it also prevents the cows from becoming strippers and also reduces contamination. So the functions of the milking machine is for milk extraction mechanically from the udder of a cow or from other milk producing animals like the sheep and the goat. Okay, so far we've talked about various farm machines, and just to recap on what we've learned, we learned that farm machinery includes the different types of machines and implements used on the farm for improved agricultural production, and such machines include the tractor, the bulldozers, shellers, dryers, incubators, and the milking machine. The machine, this question says, the machine used for removing seeds from maize cobs is called A, mill, B, decorticator, C, winnower, D, sheller. When I talked about the sheller, I specifically mentioned maize. So the answer is a sheller. This question says the periodic maintenance activity carried out on the farm tractor is A, checking of radiator water, B, checking of tire pressure, C, changing of engine oil, and D, cleaning after use. Now we have the periodic maintenance and we also have the daily maintenance. So what you do daily has to do with checking of radiator water is done daily. The tire pressure is also done daily. Cleaning after use is also done daily. That's after the operations of the making use of the tractor, you need to clean it. But for changing of oil, that is not done daily. That should be done periodically. So the answer is C. This question is also similar to the last we just treated, but this has a picture attached to it. So it said the diagram below illustrates the use of a farm machinery, and the periodic maintenance activity carried out on the illustrated farm machinery is checking the radiator water, checking of tire pressure, changing of engine oil, and cleaning after use. So as we said, the answer is C, changing of engine oil.